All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Ron. I'm an alcoholic. Quick announcement. New Year's Eve falls on a Saturday once every 7 years. We are having a blowout party here. All is welcome, no charge. It's all donation supported from you guys. It'll be fun. We'll start at 7 o'clock. We have a couple amazing speakers, right? We have Chris S. and Robbie W. coming in. They were a house 7 years ago, and we'll tap that lightning. But we have open mic going on here from 7 to 8. So what we're trying to do is give each person, and there's no requirements. You can just come up here and, share your experience, whatever you can do. We're going to try to do it like a dozen of them, like every 5 minutes, and just rotate in real quick. It'll be pretty cool. Get to know each other and share some of your stories. And we'll have a ton of food, and we're still going to work out some of the kinks of the food, the bands, stuff like that. We're trying to get that going because I believe Lambertville is still not a go that I heard of. Oh, it is a go now, or are they? It is a go? Okay, so Lambertville will be a go. So we won't be going as late as we usually do. We'll run to probably 11 o'clock and then skedoodle over to them and finish the night out there. That's perfect. Okay, we got the best chairperson in all of AA. Please help me welcome Brian. Let's have some fun.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Brian, and I am an alcoholic. This is a one-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday right here at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 301 North Main Street in Doylestown, PA. The food and the fellowship for this group starts at 8 o'clock, and the speaker comes on at 8:30. The business meeting for this group meets every Saturday at 7 p.m. to 7:30. Come early and join us, hang out, have some of the refreshments. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teachings of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others can benefit from their message of sobriety. If you wish to not be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially our newcomers. If there's anyone out there that's new or visiting from out of town, if you care to introduce yourself on a first name basis so we can welcome you. Nobody? Nobody tonight? Okay. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with a working knowledge of the 12 steps and that is willing to sponsor, please raise their hands, okay? So if you are new, and you're looking for a sponsor, grab one of those people after the meeting. There'll be a lot of us hanging out, and hopefully we can help you get into the solution. Are there any announcements for the good of AA from the floor? Nobody has anything? Okay. This group does have a sister group, which is a big book study meeting that meets every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. right up the street here at the Salem UCC Church. We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone that's willing to make donations for the purchase of big books or CDs can put their donations on that jar on the back table, marked big book and CD donations. Any CDs of any speaker, past or present, are available free of charge. Again, just see one of the home group members after the meeting. This group has a YouTube channel that you can subscribe to where we post a lot of the speakers on there. Good resource to have. We also have a Facebook page where we post, our upcoming speakers and events we might having. Also, a lot of other groups in the area will post events and happenings. So a good resource to have to stay informed and tied in with happenings throughout the AA community in the area. With that, I believe Lydia is going to come up here and read the AA preamble.
Hi, I'm Lydia, alcoholic. AA preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contribution. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. I have Michelle to come up and read the AA 12 Steps of Recovery.
Hi everyone, I'm Michelle and I'm an alcoholic. The AA 12 Steps of Recovery. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Step 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. Step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Step 10, continued to take personal inventory and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. To take over the meeting.
Okay, seventh tradition, every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting. We're going to make sure the basket gets passed around. There's no dues or fees for AA membership, but we do have expenses, and your contributions help us to cover the cost of rent, big books, events we put on, and things of that nature. There's absolutely no smoking on the church property. It's the church's policy, not ours, you know. And we're very lucky to have this place that they pretty much give us free reign of to come and go as we please, you know. So just be respectful of that as you're coming and going. Wait until you leave, you know. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. And now to introduce our speaker from tonight on loan to us from Everybody's Home Group of Media, Pennsylvania. Please help me give a warm welcome to Pat B.
I don't wear like nice clothes like this that often, so I'm like thinking like, what do I do? Do I button this or do I leave it unbuttoned? Take it off. So yeah, my name is Pat Brodeur, and I'm a recovered alcoholic. Hey, I just want to thank the group for having me out tonight. You know, it's an honor and privilege to be able to stand up here, you know, in Doylestown, you know, or wherever an AA meeting is, and you know, I'm allowed to come and speak. It's an honor, and I remember coming to this meeting when I first got sober, and like these guys that I looked up to would speak here, and like I just remember like, you know, how do you speak for an hour? How do you have that much to say? Like I'm a pretty quiet, like reserved guy, and the truth is like since that time, like God has done so many things in my life, and you know, kind of created me into this person that I never thought that I would be capable of being. And that includes like being able to speak for an hour, and like this isn't like my favorite thing to do. I'm probably not the best. I'm definitely not the best at it. I'd much rather just be low key, like helping guys, showing up for my family, showing up in my workplace, and those kind of things. But I get asked to do this, and I say yes, and you know, so I'll give it all that I got. So I have a sobriety date, which is February 5th, 2015. Which is still crazy. I'm coming up on 8 years in a couple months. I have a sponsor who, you know, I'll try to be as honest as possible tonight. So like I don't really use my sponsor as much as most people probably do. From early on, the guys that I got with, they really stress like God dependency, and the practicing of 12 steps throughout my life. I have many people that I bounce things off of, one of which is a sponsor. I've gone through the steps numerous times, regularly do inventory. But the way that people conventionally think that you would use a sponsor, I don't think I use a sponsor in that way. But, it is what it is. And I have a home group, which is everybody's home group. And when we were doing Zoom stuff, actually, we had a little bit of people coming on the pages that you would post the Zoom links, and they were like, "It's not my home group. You can't say it's everybody's home group." But that's literally just the name of the group. And it's it's a big book study. And then the last Thursday of the month, we have an hour speaker. And my home group before that for 3 or 4 years was media speakers, which it said on the flyer, which is all good. But media speakers is an hour speaker group. So I got sober around, hour speakers, hearing people talk about the solution. They would often use terms like spiritual malady, which I always thought if you hear a speaker that says something about a spiritual malady, it's a good speaker. That was my gauge for good speakers, spiritual malady. And to this day, I don't know if I could describe spiritual malady perfectly, but if a speaker says that, then I'm they know something, which is not that big of a deal. Because the truth is, I could come up here and I could quote the big book. I could tell you what page these things are on. I could do this or that, talk about spiritual malady, talk about my relationship with God. But none of that really matters if I'm not actually doing it when I leave here. It's easy. I don't know. It's pretty easy. Maybe it's not that easy, but it's kind of easy to come up here, talk for an hour, tell about what you were like, what happened, and what you're like now, and how God is working in your life, and how you got sober, you found God, you went through the 12 steps, and everything was really good. But it's for me at this point in my recovery, and it's not I've been sober for crazy long, but it's just show me what you're doing. I don't talk is cheap, show me what you're doing with your feet. And hopefully the people around me, if you were to ask them, especially the ones closest to me at this point, which is my mom, my dad, and my brother, they would tell you what I was doing. And if that was all, that would be okay with me. Even if I botched this speech tonight, or I say something wrong in an AA meeting, it's how am I treating the people closest to me? And for the longest time, that was very poorly. And my report card would be really bad on how I showed up in all relationships. And today, whether I give a good talk or not a good talk, I'm able to say I show up to life and do the best that I can. And I'm a decently reliable person who is completely changed. And it's crazy. I grew up in a house with no drinking in Wallingford, Pennsylvania. Super upper middle class, middle class. I don't know, something like that. Never really wanted for anything. Well, actually, that's a lie. I wanted for a lot of stuff. But we always had everything that we always needed. My mom, my parents are literally the most wonderful people that you could ever imagine. There was never any violence in my home. My parents showed up to every sporting event, everything. They really did the best. They did the absolute best of what they had, and what they had was a decent amount. But I could always find things to pick out of, what was unfair or whatever, and as a result of the 12 steps and, doing some inventory, I was able to see the truth in a lot of these situations. So the childhood that I always thought that I had is a lot different than the childhood that I think that I have now. And, my perspective on life has changed so much. And so, I could kind of portray, what my childhood was a little bit, but, my perception on life was just so skewed from an early age. And, that's no doing of, my parents or the environment that I was brought up in. It's just, how I was. I don't know. Maybe I was always an alcoholic. And, they talk about selfishness and self-centeredness. They talk about, just kind of, my life was just about making it all about me. And, from a young age, from the moment I was consciously aware of myself as a person, I think I was just uncomfortable and wanted everyone else to be as uncomfortable as I was, and usually that came in the form of me making everything about me. And so, like I said, I come from this household, no drinking. Both my parents are, I guess you could say they're members. You could say one of my parents is a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Honestly, I'm going to try to, be as honorable to my parents as possible as I speak tonight, because I think for me that's like really important to do, as well as like with anyone else. But my mom goes to AA, my dad doesn't. They're both wonderful people. Alcoholism is an interesting thing in the way that it shows up in individuals' lives as they stay sober and, work the 12 steps or don't work the 12 steps. And you can use your imagination however you want towards that. But I have two wonderful parents, that's the truth. And so it's like there was no drinking or anything. Like I grew up in this like nice home, and, I kind of paint that picture because there was no trauma or anything that I could point to as to why, like, I took my first drink or why, like, I continued to drink the way that I drank. I truly just believe that, like, I'm an alcoholic. And, like, it doesn't even really matter, like, the root of my alcoholism. It actually probably has something to do, like, a little bit with, like, both my parents being alcoholics. But I've never seen them take a drink in my entire life. They're still sober to this day. Like I said, wonderful people. And like as I came in this time, like I finally like understood like what makes me an alcoholic. And maybe there's people sitting in here came from an abusive home, or they came from I don't know, they grew up going from abandoned house to abandoned house, whatever, like coming from all different kinds of demographics, poor, rich, whatever. I couldn't point to anything that like reason like why I was an alcoholic, and like it truly doesn't matter for me like whether I grew up in a bad home or a good home. Like I have friends in AA who had like the worst possible upbringings that you could imagine, and they ended up here, and I come from this like pretty decent upbringing, and like I ended up here. I finally found out like what makes me an alcoholic, and the big book describes it as phenomena craving. Like once I take a drink, like I can't control the amount I take, and for me like that shows up with everything that I've ever taken. Whether it's a substance or alcohol or whatever it is, it's I take one and then like all bets are off. Like I'm off to the races. Like I want another, and then I demand one more, and it's just like I just go until the wheels fall off. And then like once I do get sober, like I can't remember all the bad stuff that happened before I got sober, so I drink again. And that for me just happened over and over again. And like that's so relieving, like when I came in this time, because I didn't have to look for this thing that was hidden in my childhood or some kind of traumatic event that brought me to being an alcoholic. I just knew like this is what makes me an alcoholic, and like there's something that can be done about it. And that I can't do it on my own, like I need the help of something greater than myself. And like if I didn't get brought to the position where like, I can't control the amount I can take, and I can't stay stopped, then like, I pretty much had to like give it over to something else. And, a little bit about God is, I don't know, how many people are in like their first 90 days here? 2, 3, 4, nice, like a few. I remember coming in and like seeing like God on, so many of these things, and just being like, oh man, that's like brutal. I can't do that. That's too much. And like the truth is, like I never really even had a traumatic experience with God either. I just thought God is like super boring. I grew up. That's right. I grew up Catholic, and I don't necessarily have anything real bad to say about Catholicism. It's helped like many people throughout the ages of the last 2,000 years or whatever. But a lot of people have a lot of bad things to say. But whatever. It was just super boring. Like we go there, it's like a bunch of old people. Like you sit, kneel, and stand, and like this is no disrespect to Catholicism, but it just seemed like super boring. And as soon as like I didn't have to do anything with that, like that was it. And that's like my idea of like what God is. It's just like stuffy place that's boring, and oh God, I just want to leave it. That's like how I felt. And so like I'm like growing up in like this household, and looking back, I can see like all these tendencies of an alcoholic. And the first, my parents would take us on these vacations they would take us on these vacations that were like, I don't know, we went to like Bahamas, California, Florida, like all these cool places. And like unless I got exactly what I wanted, when I wanted it, like I would make them miserable. And I remember we went to like Disney World and Universal Studios, and I'm pretty sure I was like really unhappy, and like I made them get like a wheelchair and push me around because I was like so unpleasant, and which is just wild. Like I was such a bad kid. I was like a behaved kid because I was so afraid of like getting caught doing anything. But like if I could manipulate the people that like were real close to me and like I wouldn't have any consequences, I would do that. And then so like mom, dad, and brother was the easy targets. And then there was like another time I can remember, like it was like my birthday. I was like 12 years old. And so like to paint the picture, it's like I'm 12 years old. There's like 15 kids that are running around crazy. It's at a bowling alley. Like they're trying to organize cake, trying to, just all these crazy kids. And like my mom made a mistake and she put me second on the bowling list. And like that's something that I used against her. Like I was like, how could you ever put your son, who you're supposed to love, like number 2 on the bowling list? But the reality, that's like how I like went about life. Is like it's all about me. Like I mean, I still know like the dude's name is Chris, who was number 1 on the list. And I used that, like that's like 12 years old, and I used that till I was like, I got sober when I was like 23. And I used that every time like I couldn't get something that I wanted, I would bring up at that time. And so my life just like consisted of like me collecting like these little things that could like pull on the heartstrings of my mom and dad to get what I want and just make it all about me. And so like that's like before a drink. That's before I know about AA. I remember like growing up, there actually used to be like these grapevine grapevine AA literature on the back of the toilet seats, and I just thought that was such a weird name for like a little magazine. So like AA was like around, but like it wasn't really around. And like my mom and dad got sober in the 80s, and my mom would share this as well. But they used to just, what my mom and dad said that they would do is they would come in AA, they would get a big book, read the stories in the back, and go through the steps out of the 12 and 12. And I don't know how that worked for them. Honestly, it didn't work that well. Like that's my mom's words. She recently, like maybe 2 years before I got sober, she had an experience with the 12 steps as outlined in the big book, and like completely changed as a person. And really, I think that was like a catalyst for like me getting sober. Like her being a different person, and really just being an example of like how God can, years, maybe decades sober, enter into somebody's life and just change so much. So she's been an example of like the big book and the 12 steps working in my life, or working in somebody's life for, like the last 10 years. But I say all this just to say like my parents, like I said, were, by all means like good people, but they just didn't have all the things that, I would like them to have. And that's not their fault at all. You can only have what's presented to you. So long story short, so I had my first drink, I think, like when I was 14. And, maybe you hear in Alcoholics Anonymous, like these different experiences where like, and maybe this is your experience, like you had your first drink and like the gates of heaven opened up, like it was like a spiritual experience. And like maybe you're like, oh man, I didn't have that experience, so maybe I don't belong here. And the truth is, like, I didn't have like an experience like that. Like, I was like so scared because my parents don't drink. They're like sober all the time. Like, I can't sneak in because they'll like smell my breath. And I had my first drink, and like what I remember is that, as politely as I can say it, girls that weren't as attractive looked more attractive to me. I don't know how to say it. I guess that's as nicely as I can say it. Which seemed cool because then like I don't know, opens up a bigger window of girls. I don't know how to say it, but that's what happened. And so that was cool. And then like I also had a reason to like blame like why I felt like awkward. So that was kind of cool too. And then that was kind of it. Like it didn't feel like like I could finally take like a deep breath or anything like that. It was cool. And, and I did it like when I could during high school. And it was like I got away with it. And like, I always drank too much. And like, I would always remember like, my parents are alcoholics. And like, I didn't really know what that meant. But like, I always bragged to my friends that like, I could drink more than other people because my parents were alcoholics. Which I don't even know if that's true. But I'm pretty sure that I was like suffering from the phenomenon of craving, like even from the jump or from the rib, whatever you want to call it. I don't even talk like that. It's true. So in high school it was normal. And the truth is, like, while I was there, I was like under the care of my parents. And like they pushed me through to become an Eagle Scout, to play football for 4 years in high school. And they got me to complete so many things that like on my own I wouldn't have completed. And like as soon as I turned 18, and graduated high school, I went off to college. And that's like, the whole God thing. Like I told my parents, like as soon as I turn 18, like I'm not going to church anymore. Like this is horrible. Like can't believe you make me do this. And like they really only made me go like twice a year, like Christmas and Easter. But it was just like seemed so unbearable to me. And so like I fought them. So like no more church, no more God. Leave high school, go to college. I'm on my own. Like I can create my own life for me. Like my parents, they're like overbearing. They're just trying to control me. Like they don't know what's best for me. When really like they knew what was best for me pretty much. I didn't. And so I go off to college and like I have all this freedom that I never had. And I come from this house that's supposed to be like a sober household with a younger brother who like my brother is like one of the most wonderful dudes that I know. Him and I are like so different. I was like, I'm like felon, alcoholic. He's like all-American athlete. Like, so we were like just like a little bit different. And like I never showed up for any of his stuff. Like even like before like my drinking became continuous. Like the person that I was that if it wasn't about me, if it wasn't for me, like I don't see why I should go. And so like my brother played. My brother played lacrosse like I don't know for like 8 years or whatever, and like I went to under a dozen games, maybe even under half a dozen, and like I was supposed to be like this example of like being a bigger an older brother, someone that he could look up to, and like I didn't resemble anything like that, and not that I didn't wish that I was. I mean I do wish that I was, but I just didn't have like the ability to do that. And that's not like a cop-out, like that just is what it is. So I go off to school and I have all this freedom and like then now I can like party and like I don't have to worry about like sneaking in with my parents. And like long story short is, the really long story short is that I failed out of that school. But like in the middle, like I remember just being like so like feared up or like running on fear and like this is all like looking back. Like when I'm in it, like I don't know that like I'm running on fear. I would never tell you like I'm a scared person or if I'm afraid. But I remember like going to class and then like going out at the nighttime and then like missing the class the next day and like my mind would just like race like thinking like what are these people like thinking of me like I wonder why they think that I missed the class and then like I'm so afraid of like what they think that I'll miss the next class and then like. And then I missed another one because they're definitely thinking about me at this point. There's no way that they're not thinking about me. Like, what about the people that sit next to me? They're definitely thinking about me. I can't possibly go back. They're going to ask questions, and I don't know what to say, so I just won't go. And, like, that's, like, how I live my life. It's, like, so scared. And, I found out that, like, if you don't go to class, you can't really get too good a grade, not good enough grades for them to ask you to come back. So they asked me not to come back. And, at that point, like I had really, my drinking had become like a regular thing. And so at this point, my parents are starting to figure out like, there's some stuff going on. They're not really sure what. So they start sending me to like drug and alcohol counselors who like I can't tell the truth to. Like why would I ever tell the truth to them? It's like this is what all kids do in college. Like they party, they drink a lot. They fall asleep in the quad and have to have people wake them up. They get like public drunkenness, all that stuff. Like it all seemed like reasonable to me, like until it didn't, I guess. And so like it was just like a lot of drinking and whatnot and whatever. Like I said before, like I can't control the amount I take when I drink, so I'm always overshooting the mark. And then like if I tell myself that I'm not going to drink, like I can't keep that promise to myself. No matter how much I want to, no matter how much I disappoint my family, no matter how much trouble I get in, like I just can't do it on my own. And like at this point I'm like, God, like anyone who believes in God is like, you know, full of you know what, full of chocolate milk. And I never even heard that before. Sounded to sound good. Yeah, and like that was my life. It's like I'll just do better. You know, I just need to do better. I'll try harder, and trying harder never worked. It doesn't work in most aspects of life for me. There's like certain rare instances where I can just try harder and it works out. Rarely does that ever happen. And it wasn't really until I came into Alcoholics Anonymous and formed a relationship with God, that I was able to like do all these things. Like I've gone back to school and taken classes and gotten A's in them, shown up for my family, all kinds of stuff. And it's like I tried for years to do that stuff and I just couldn't do it. So basically what happened was, man, so much stuff happened. But so I mean, I've been in like 14 car accidents. I've like totaled 4 cars. I got like 3 felonies. You know, I don't know, a bunch of public drunkennesses, DUIs, all that kind of stuff. And like if you're sitting here, you know, one of the 4 people to raise their hands in the first 90 days, and like you don't have any of that, like that doesn't mean that you're disqualified from being here. You know, I hope that you know you hear like, you know, like when I drink, when I drink, I can't tell you for certain every time how many I'm going to have. And that might look like me going out tonight and having 3 drinks and saying I'm having 3 drinks and going home and that's it. But I can't for certain every single time I go out say how many I want to have and hit that mark. And like that was the thing that really got me, because I thought that like I just had to drink all the time and like it'd just be 24-hour drinking. And like I did end up there, but like you know, you don't have to be like a continuous, you know, it says like in the book, like you know, you don't have to be a continuous hard drinker. It's like what happens when you take the first drink. And like that was so confusing to me for so long. You know, I would hear people say, I went to another fellowship too, they say one is too many, 1,000 is never enough, or they say the first drink gets you drunk. And like I just never knew what that doesn't make any sense. It has to be like a really big drink or something. But it's like when I take a drink, something happens inside of me that I need to take another drink. And like I can trick myself in the rare instances when that doesn't happen into thinking that it never happens. And that this time it'll be different, so it's not going to happen this time. Like I was just making too big a deal of it, you know? And then like I'll just drink beer and I'll be good. And like over and over again, like I fail the test. So if you don't have any consequences or anything, and like you can relate to like drinking and missing the mark many times, and then like unable to stay stopped for good, then you're probably in the right place. And I say all that to bringing us to one car accident, which it was like 4 o'clock in the morning. It was 4 o'clock in the morning. I was living in my parents' house. At this point, I know when they go to bed. I know when they wake up. I know the sound of every step in the house. I know my dad goes to bed late, sleeps late. My mom goes to bed early, wakes up at around 5 o'clock. I know that if it's 4 o'clock, I need to go to the store before my mom wakes up. And so like I wanted to be really quiet. And so like I got my dad's truck, and he loved this truck so much. It was a Dodge Dakota. You know, not the most glamorous truck or anything, but like he just like, it was like this 99 black Dodge Dakota. He loved this thing. It's so smooth. And I like beat that thing into the dirt. And this one time, it was like 4 in the morning. I just wanted to be quiet. I didn't turn the keys all the way, and I didn't know like if you don't turn the keys all the way, you don't have power steering or power brakes. So I backed out of the driveway and hit this like beloved tree of his. It's like a Japanese maple at the bottom of our driveway that he like loves. And I hit this, and I'm like spinning in the grass, and like I'm really loud when I was trying to just be quiet. I went and got my cigarettes, and I got back, and both my parents are on the back deck waiting for me. And it's like, oh gosh, this is not good. So I go out there and I talk to them, and they basically gave me 2 alternatives, that I could go to rehab or I could get kicked out of their house. And And like, I knew if I went to rehab, then like, it wouldn't really matter that I just crashed their car for the, umpteenth time, or anything that I was doing, it wouldn't really matter. It was like, kind of like a whitewash. Like I go to rehab and like all sins are forgiven, which like actually is not true. But I thought that was true. So I ended up going to rehab and like, I'm crying because I don't want to be there. And at this point, like, I like my whole life, like I really just felt disconnected to people. Like I don't know if I could put my finger on that statement, like going into rehab that time. But like now I can see, like I just felt so disconnected to people. And I remember being in that rehab and looking up, and I really didn't want to go. I was really just doing it just to get out of trouble, And I thought I kind of had a little bit of a problem too, I guess, but nothing I couldn't handle. And I'm in this rehab and I look up at the sky and like I just had this experience, which I believe today is like, a God experience where I looked up and I just felt connected to like the world and to the people. And like I never really felt that. And like drinking and alcohol and drugs and relationships and money and power and all kinds of things, like they provided that for me in like brief moments that were fleeting, that I like always tried to grasp over and over again. And the nice thing is that if I overshoot the mark, then I just don't really remember much. But there's always a sweet spot where like I feel really connected, and like I never had that like without some kind of something in me, or without like just buying something or anything like that. And I had this experience where it was just me, it was the end of an August day, and I just felt so connected. And then what happened, I ended up being in rehab for like 3 more days. I stayed there like 7 days total. But like I had this experience where like I felt like there was something out there, and I still didn't believe there was a God or anything like that, but just the feeling of connected was like, oh, this is kind of nice. And I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and my experience in AA isn't one that's like, just don't drink and go to meetings, meeting makers make it, put the plug in the jug. Like, I've heard all of that stuff, and whatever. But I was always surrounded by people like talking about my big book is in Rich's car. I left it at my home group last Thursday, or 2 Thursdays ago. But I was always surrounded by people who were coming to meetings like this, who were doing hour talks all around, who were talking about God, who were talking about spirituality, and which still like is like baffling sometimes. And they would always talk about like phenomenon craving and mental obsession. And I remember like sitting outside of this hour speaker meeting this time around, and like I was like, oh man, like if they ever ask me like what those things are, I need to like have the right answer. So like I would like sit in my recovery house, and like while everyone was playing like spades, I'd be like reading the big book like with a highlighter, just because like I wanted these guys to like think that I knew something about something. And so like those are the kind of people that I was always surrounded in AA. And that's not to say that I didn't go to meetings where people only talked about just like gluing your butt to the seat, or I don't know, holding on to it, or whatever. I don't know, whatever those people do. And the reality of it is that everyone is just trying to do the best that they can with what they have. And so like today I have like a lot of grace for people who I would probably challenge like openly many times, when I was early on in sobriety. But it's like, I don't know. Let the record show I'm struggling. So like always surrounded by like big book dudes, and like I started going through the steps. I got a sponsor only because my mom had this experience in AA, and like she knew I needed to sponsor a home group and to go through the 12 steps. Which was a little overwhelming that, she knew all these things, and because then she could like check in on me, and like I could lie, but it was a lot harder to lie. And so I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and like I did some steps, and I never really got honest, and I thought I still could have some power, and I didn't really believe like lack of power was my dilemma. I didn't I didn't, concede to my innermost self that I was an alcoholic, or like really be able to hear like what that actually means, and like experientially like line it up with my life. And like that's not a reflection on the people that sponsored me or that I was around. It's just just where I was, and I guess I just wasn't ready, or I just hadn't had enough pain. I mean, I don't even know why. It doesn't even really matter why, but I just didn't do the stuff. And like my parents would slowly think that they're getting their son back, because I would go to meetings and I would collect the coins and I would show them each month. And in that sin of sobriety, I don't know if I ever had more than 60 days, but I would go to the meetings and I would collect the coin, and I collected up to like 7 months of coins, and like I would show them to my parents, and like I would be able to hide my drinking. Like I would sneak pounders up to my room, or say I was going to a meeting. I would make sure I went to a meeting one week so that the next week I didn't have to go, and then I could tell them like what it was like just because I had been there once. And then I would like go to the bar or just hang out in the parking lot, or like I went through the stage where like I would go to Rita's a lot during meetings and like get mistos. That was like a big thing. Just anything not to do the stuff that I needed to do because I didn't think that I needed to do it. And like for me, like a guy like me, like I can only last so long doing that. But it was so nice to have that experience, because I mean, it didn't feel nice at the time, but like now looking back, because like I had this like foundation of what Alcoholics Anonymous, I believe Alcoholics Anonymous should look like. And like these guys wanted to help me no matter how much I was lying to them, no matter how much I was banged up or whatever. They just wanted to help, and they didn't care, if I showed up in good condition, bad condition. They were just there for me unconditionally. And like my parents and my brother and like family members have been like that throughout my life, but I couldn't really see that experience with strangers, and they had shown me that. And so, I ended up going on this 2-year run, which honestly was like a lot of fun, but at the same time, like it was really bad too. I don't know, if you never had fun drinking or partying or anything like that, that kind of sucks. I think it does, it's like I had a great time a lot of the time. But like at the end, it was just so bad. And so after 2 years, I remember like, oh man, it was so bad. Like I had everything that you could want. Like I had a career job, I had a new house that I was renting. I didn't own a house, but like I was renting a house, which was kind of cool because I could do whatever I wanted to. And then I had a new car. I had this really nice career job that was promising. I had everything that you could ever want. I was drinking more than I'd ever had before, and like all this stuff just stopped working. And like for me, like I just can't ask for help. I've gotten better at it today, but like still, I could be better. And I just can't ask for help. And like everyone around me knows, like work knows, like I'm getting laid off from multiple jobs, and like by some miracle they like never like breathalyzed me or drug tested me. And so I'm just like working for these companies for a month, 2-3 months. They lay me off, go to another one, work, and it's just like this cycle of like me just kind of just like skating through life, like trying to just be okay, and like I'm not okay, and just thinking that like I can recapture like this thing that I used to have, and I just can't. And so one day I'm in my grandmother's car in this back parking lot. I'm drinking in her car, and like this is the kind of grandson that I was. I showed up to her house. It's the end of January 2015, and I show up, to look like I'm a good grandson. But in reality, I know if I put away her Christmas decorations, I can borrow her car and she'll give me some money. And like I don't even need to ask for it, so it won't even seem like I'm asking for that. But like she'll just do it because she loves me and she's like a kind woman. And so I borrow her car, and I'm like drinking in her car in this parking lot. And for some reason, I left the back door open. I couldn't wait, so I left the back door open. And like this cop walked up to my window, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm not doing anything." And like it's clear that I'm like drinking in the car, and I have all kinds of like other paraphernalia. I was just like a vape shop, and like for some reason I bought some other stuff too. Like it was rough. And so like I'm not the brightest guy, so there's like all this stuff like laying on the seat. And I'm just like telling him I'm not doing anything, but he's like not blind and he sees all this stuff. And he like pulls me out of the car and I'm like, no, I'm like an alcoholic, I'm an addict, like it's not that big a deal. Like thinking like he's gonna tell me to like hit a meeting or something and just let me go. And he didn't do that. So, and like I've done this deal before, like you get arrested, you go to the holding cell, they let you out in the morning. Mom and Dad are a little disappointed, and that's like not what happened this time. This time, I went to the holding cell, they arraigned me, and then I went to another jail. I went to like George W. Hill, and which like I had never been to a place like that before, and like I was coming off like a run of like being physically dependent on multiple things, and it was just like a rough stop. And like I felt so broken. Like I felt, in the big book, the William James, like he talks about a variety of religious experiences, and like one of the common things in all of those religious experiences is like a feeling of defeat. And like I think that's why the first step is so important. And like if I don't believe that like I'm truly defeated, like why would I be willing to rely on something other than myself? And like I was in that jail cell, and like they took like my thing out of my hoodie. I don't know. They got me a hamburger, not a cheeseburger, a hamburger, which was kind of cool while I was in the holding cell. But they took like everything from me, and I felt like the life that I had was completely over. And like my life wasn't even that great, but like I had this career job. I had like still had the love of my family, and like I just felt like all of that was just gone. Like I would never amount to anything. Like I felt like for me there was no hope. And they use that twice at the end of the doctor's opinion, talking about hopelessness, and like for him, in a deserted barn, he decides the situation hopeless. Like I've truly felt like not reading any big book telling me that I was hopeless or anything. I just felt like I was like hopeless, and like I went to jail and I was withdrawing really bad, and it was bad. And there was this little book in there. It's like the Daily Bread. It's like a daily, like, I don't know, Christian devotional or whatever. And me and this dude who was like coming off like a meth run, he like ripped it in half, and like we each started reading half of it. And I remember being in there, and like just to paint a picture, like I'm this dude who like, God, like, no, God is not real. Like if you believe in God, you're crazy. Like if you're writing something about God on Facebook, I'm going to direct message you and tell you how crazy you are. And I'm reading this little daily devotional thing, and like I remember what these people in AA told me about praying, and like I just said the most sincere prayer that maybe I'll ever say in my entire life, and I just say, God, please help me, I can't do this anymore. And like I just like ran out of options for myself, and like it seemed like this make-believe thing was the only option. And I took a little nap, and I woke up, and I was like completely changed. And like I haven't thought about a drink since that day. I've had bad days. I think everyone has bad days, but I just felt like I was going to be okay. And like on my best effort, trying as hard as I can, like I've never been able to take myself from feeling like I can't do anything to feeling like I'm going to be okay, no matter how hard I tried. Like if I could have done that, I would have done it a long, long time ago. I just can't. And so like God showed up in my life and like showed me how powerful prayer is, and like I don't know if I would be praying if it wasn't for that, or if I would be here today. And like I just felt like I know what I need to do, and so I called up my parents, who told me that they wouldn't bail me out, and I told them like everything was going to be okay. And like track record shows, like how could you believe me? I'm like in jail, like you just got arrested like 4 days ago. And they ended up bailing me out, and it was like you can either get bailed out, you can stay in there or you go to rehab, and like rehab always seems like the easier option. I don't know. I'm a pretty soft dude, and so I went to rehab, and I had that same sponsor that I had before. I had him come into treatment, and he met with me like 2 weeks into treatment, and we went through 1, 2, and 3, and he gave me a 4-step to write, like two weeks sober. And then I got out, and I told my parents that I'd be willing to go to any lengths, and I didn't know that meant not going back home, so they made me go to a recovery house. And And I continued to go through the steps. And, you know, I guess 3 months or so, I went through all 12 steps, like started sponsoring guys, and didn't have great success with that. But I just kept showing up. I don't know. Like, it's like a lot of like 1, 2, 3, never hear from you again. There's this one guy, he was my first sponsee ever. This is really cool. He was my first sponsee ever. 1, 2, 3, I just saw him for the first time, or heard from him, like 3 months ago, 7 years later. Which was pretty cool, and he's sober. Not like continuously sober, but he is sober now. It was so wild. Oh my God. He showed up to my home group 1 week. It was like the wildest thing ever. It's so cool. And so I get out of rehab, and like I have these like on the answering machine, there's these messages from, you know, this Chester County Police Department that I have warrants out for my arrest for something. And I remember like they called me in January on this phone. I had a couple phones, and they called me on this one phone that I had. And they were like, yeah, like we got you like breaking in, or like this parking garage or something like that. And I was like, I never did anything like that. I'll just get rid of this phone and it'll just go away. And it wasn't my number. Well, it was my number, but it also wasn't my number. But that didn't happen. They didn't go away. So I ended up turning myself in. I was, I guess, like, I don't know, like six weeks sober or whatever, and like I said this prayer, and I just said, like, God, just please help me be okay with whatever you have for me. And like I would do those foxhole prayers, like even like to the God that I didn't ever believe in before, where like, get me out of this, get me out of that, like give me this, give me that. Like it was always about like me receiving something. It was never about like me being okay with whatever God has for me. And so like I went into this, I don't know, it was like a 6 or 8 month court process. Just like being like, you know, the mantra was like, God, just help me be okay with whatever you have for me. And like, that's what I try to bring into today. It's like, whatever you have for me, God, just help me be okay with it, and just help me get through it. I mean, I could ask for a lot of things, and I don't know if they'd be beneficial for my life, but I would like them. But like when I'm able to show up and just be there for what God has for me, like life is so much better. And 8 months sober, I go to jail. And like, it's so cool because like, I really felt like that's like, I'm not just saying this like that, like this is where God wanted me to be. Like I really, like, I felt like that's like where God like wanted me to be. And like, I was like, I went into jail with like a smile on my face. Like people were like dumbfounded. Like how could this person be like okay with like going to jail? And it was like a 9.5 to 23. It wasn't anything too crazy. So like months like 8 to 15, like I was in a county jail, which is, I don't know, it wasn't that bad. I had a great perspective though too, and like I was applying the 12 steps. I had made a bunch of amends. I was trying, you know, I was 1, 2, 3 in these guys, never getting calls back. But I was like trying to do all the things that AA asked for me. I was active in a home group, like just the basics. And like really, like my experience in Alcoholics Anonymous has been me doing the basic stuff as outlined in the big book, and trying to grow spiritually, and you know, having relationships with people closest to me. And like life gets it's like very simple, and like that doesn't mean like bad stuff doesn't happen, but it's fairly simple. So I went into this jail, and you know, it was a really cool experience. So I was in there for like 9 months, and like I got to start a big book study on Sunday nights. We had like 15 guys sitting around a table breaking down the big book. I would call like my friends on the like I would always call my one buddy, because my sponsor, like for some reason, like couldn't get calls. I don't know why, but I would call my other buddy, and like he would like tell me like what part of the book to look in and all this, and because I was like taking guys through the steps in jail too. And it was really cool. Like the first guy I ever took through all 12 steps was in like 17 days, like in jail, and I got to see like him completely change in like less than a month, and like have people come in on visitations, and like he would make amends to these guys, to the, you know, his girlfriend or his mom or his dad or whoever would come into visitations. Like he would make amends to them, and it was like so cool. And I really got to just like see like, you know, what does my relationship with God look like? And I mean, I worked a little bit in there. I mean, I worked like 6 days a week in there, but it wasn't for a lot. So I got to see like what life is like not having a lot, and like not having to depend on like having these things in order to be happy, and just depending on God. And like what a wonderful foundation that is set for my life and for my sobriety. And I got out, and like there's nothing too crazy that has happened since I got out. I mean, I guess there's a lot of crazy stuff. But, I get to show up for my family, who, like, I just drug through the mud for many years. Like my mom and dad come to me for advice, which is wild. My brother was, like, a long amends process of, like, me just continuing to, like, just show up. I talked to him, I made, like, formal amends, and then it was really, like, Pat, like, how are you going to show up to me as a brother? And, he said to me, he was like, you need to be a good friend before you can be a good brother. And like 2 years sober, like he told me that I was being a good friend. And then, I don't know, like 2 years after that, like 4 years sober, he was like, Pat, you're a good brother. And then, which is like, like I wasn't a good brother for the longest time. And I just get sober and I want like him to forgive me and like be like, you're a great brother. And, that's just not reality. Like some of the pain that I've caused in people's lives, like some childhood friends don't even want to talk to me still to this day. Like, and like this is people that have like, since we were like 1 year old, like they don't want to talk to me, but for many of these amends, like I've showed up, I've made the demonstration, and if they don't want to meet with me, they don't want to meet with me. But like if I've been able, specifically with my brother, to show up in his life continually, then the relationship gets to be rebuilt. And like, I mean, I didn't cry right now, but I could easily cry about that because that means so much to me. And like, that's all that I ever wanted to be. I wanted to be a good son, a good brother, a good employee. I wanted to be all these things, but like, I just didn't have the capability to do it. And it wasn't until like I developed this relationship with God, like as, through the 12 steps kind of being the carrier to get me there, that I was able to do those things. And, it's really cool. The big book talks about, many things. And I feel like I usually talk about the big book a little bit more than I did tonight. But the one thing that it talks about is it talks about like seeing where religious people are right, make use of what they have to offer. It talks about, laying aside prejudice. It talks about like old ideas. It talks like stuff like that. And so like I tried to just pray like to God in the beginning for me to just be open. And that super boring Catholic church that I couldn't ever stand to be in, which really had done no harm to me. I ended up finding my way back into a church. And like, I just, similar to how AA showed me, like I showed up, and like I've grown so much, and like I've gotten to look like, my experience with God is that I found another home where like I can serve people, which is really cool. And, it started off with me just going to a service thing. It was really weird, to getting, involved in like a group there. And like today, like I like preach at the church, like it's third week in Advent, like I get to give a sermon on, I forget. Don't tell them I forget. I have it written down somewhere. There's so much going on. But like I get to show up in life and like I've gotten to run so many like service projects in North Philly and like we helped like all these people move into homes in Wilmington and just like see how like I can serve other people and just like a means to grow my relationship with God and like I have many sponsees who find so many different paths for their spirituality and like that's one of the most beautiful things I think about AA is like when Ebby, Ebby kind of talked to Bill and he was just so fed up and he said like, why don't you choose your own conception? And like what a wonderful door that opens for each and every one of us, no matter where we come from or where we're going. Like we can just try stuff on. That's a really cool thing about Alcoholics Anonymous. And there was one last thing I wanted to talk about, if I can remember it. So basically, long story short is that I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. I was super resistant to God and the 12 steps. I got beaten down. I came back in. I was open to the idea that maybe possibly there might be some kind of something greater than me. I took some simple steps. I looked at some stuff that I thought that was totally other people's faults. I tried to make right the wrongs in my life. I continue to try to grow in my relationship with God, and I try to sponsor guys, and like I've had the honor and privilege of sponsoring like so many people, and just showing up for life, and you know, practicing the principle in all of our affairs. And you know, I hope I didn't portray a picture of like life is all good. Like this past year, you know, we sometimes like getting to show up to life is not a very pleasant thing. And this past year, like my dad has been fighting cancer, and so like I've gotten to show up for him, my mom, and my brother in that regard, and just see how, you know, he's actually all good. He got like this crazy like treatment, I don't know, and he's doing better now. But you know, sometimes life brings these things that are like unexpected, and it's like, you know, am I going to lean into God and trust God, or am I, you know, going to just try to rely on myself? And you know, I hope that people could say that, like, in those kind of circumstances, like, I lean into God and what He has for me, and trust that there's a plan. And this past year, like, I've been able to show up for mom, dad, and brother as somebody who comes to serve them, and to just be like the sibling and the son that I never was. And like, none of that would be capable if it wasn't for the foundation of the 12 Steps and Alcoholics Anonymous, and all the people here tonight and who came before me. And that's all I got.
Pat, thank you. Fantastic job. I really appreciated your honesty, appreciated you having fun with it, and appreciate you coming out to our group tonight and sharing just a real powerful message of hope and recovery. We're just about at the hour, so a couple quick announcements and we'll get out of here. The food and the fellowship, again, starts for this group at 8 o'clock. So get here early, grab some of the refreshments, hang out with us. If you want to get involved with some service work, there's a lot of moving parts, you know, that have to come together to make this meeting happen. So if you want to help out, we appreciate it. There's always a meeting after the meeting. If you want to help out with some service work now, we could always use help in the kitchen back there. Could use help putting the chairs away. We put away these chairs on the sides and out on the floor here. All the chairs on back there at the tables will stay right where they are. Our speakers come here on their own time and expense, so it's usually customary for us to form a line and thank our speakers personally if you choose to do so. And if you care to join us, we have a nice way of closing. And we will close the meeting with a brief moment of silence for the still sick and suffering alcoholic, followed by the Lord's Prayer. Our Father,